Hey, welcome to another episode of I Want to Cook. Today I'm going to be answering the question, what the heck is Mirepoix and how do you use it in cooking? So at its most basic, Mirepoix is this: onions, celery, and carrots. Yes, Mirepoix is a French term for those three vegetables, carrots, celery, and onions, and those are known as aromatics. So with Mirepoix, you don't necessarily just kind of eat these plain. Think of it as a supporting actor in a movie. Mirepoix supports recipes that you make. They are used a lot in soups, stews, braises, hearty dishes. Think like meat dishes or poultry dishes, things that might just simmer for a long time or roast for a long time. And when you add these three items, they give a really great background flavor. This is one of those things in cooking where the sum is greater than the parts. Yeah, if you add onions to a dish and carrots to a dish or celery to a dish, those might be good. But when you combine those three together, pow, flavor explosion. You also get a nice texture. It's just a really complementary ingredient to a lot of different dishes. Now, Mirepoix goes beyond just carrots, celery, and onions. In fact, there's a lot of different variations of these aromatics. And one other really popular one is something that's used in Louisiana called the Cajun Trinity or the Holy Trinity. And that's where you substitute the celery for, boom, a bell pepper. Now this may be where you're thinking, okay, got it. So Mirepoix is basically onions, carrots, and celery. But how the heck do you kind of incorporate it into a dish? Well, you don't just, throw all these into the pot and let them cook together. Mirepoix becomes Mirepoix when you actually cut it up. And when you cut up these vegetables to become a Mirepoix, they don't have to necessarily be exact cuts. You just want similar size cuts. So you can mince them really fine and have kind of a fine Mirepoix. You could do some medium chops and have a medium Mirepoix. Or if you're using these are going to be for a larger dish, like let's say a really hearty stew, you would want nice larger pieces. And that's where you would just cut up bigger chops, bigger dices to have a larger Mirepoix. So here's how to think about it. If you're cooking something that's really quick, let's say like a fish stock or some chicken soup, something that really doesn't take that long of time, you can use a kind of a small to medium cut. But if you're doing something that's going to be, let's say, braising for a long time, like a beef stew, that's where you would want larger pieces. And Mirepoix can be cooked a number of ways. Again, if we're using soup as an example, you might just add it to the pot and simmer it with your chicken if you're making chicken soup. Or if you are making a braise, you can add it to the pot with the meat and brown it, or you can even just kind of brown it on its own. Let's say if we're making a marinara sauce and we wanted to incorporate Mirepoix, you could add that and brown it. So let me show you an example. I'm going to cut these up and we're just going to kind of saute them in a pan. I'm going to show you what it all looks like. So in classical French cooking, Mirepoix is traditionally 2 parts onion to 1 part carrot and celery. But again, the beauty of cooking is you can always tailor it to your taste. So if you like more carrot than you do like celery and onion, use more of that. So for now, I'm just going to show you a really simple Mirepoix application. So I'm going to begin by just kind of cutting up an onion. And for this, I'm just using a basic yellow onion. And remember, if you haven't seen my video about the chef's way to properly dice an onion, be sure to check out that video. It'll save you a lot of time when you're cutting up your onions. So for this, I'm just going to go with kind of like a medium Mirepoix and just create kind of some medium dices here. And then the idea is when we cut up the celery and the carrot, we'll keep them in a similar size. Nobody's using a ruler here. We're not going to be measuring. Although I should tell you, when I was in culinary school and we were learning how to make precise dices, I had a chef instructor who would actually literally go to each of our tables with a ruler and measure our cuts. Ugh. So one really super flavorful way to work with mirepoix, let's say if we were going to begin a braise or a stew, would be to sweat it in a pot. So again, usually you could do this with meat, but since I'm just showing you how to use these ingredients as they are, I'll show you an example of just kind of sweating them in a pot. And again, when we're sweating, that just means we're sauteing them lightly. So I've got some olive oil here. And I'm going to heat my pan over about medium. We'll pour some olive oil in. If you don't have olive oil, you could use vegetable oil. You could use butter if that's all you have, but oil usually works really well. So we want to heat our pot, and when I do this, I'm just kind of letting the oil swirl around the pot, kind of coat the bottom. If you didn't use oil, if you didn't use any sort of fat, then you would risk scorching these vegetables, these aromatics, and nobody likes scorched, burnt anything. Yuck. So what I'm going to do is just put these in, and basically you would just saute them. And you can let these go for about 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how much brownness you wanted. And if you watched my video on how to caramelize onions, it's a very similar thing as to what we're doing here. Now, you don't always need to go that far. You don't need to get them brown and with that sugary sweetness, but it's the same theory. And as always, when you're cooking anything, you always want to season. So I'm going to pour a little bit of salt in here, and you can already hear these starting to sizzle. So basically, this is mirepoix. This is cooking mirepoix, and again, from here, this could work with a number of other dishes. So that's what mirepoix is all about. And no, it's not pronounced Mirepoix or, I don't know, any other variation. If nothing else from this video, you learned how to announce mirepoix correctly. And again, you can use this in so many different recipes. So next time you are cooking, let's say, a heartier stew or a soup, try adding mirepoix and just see how much flavor those 3 ingredients give to the dish. And again, experiment with other aromatics. You can use ginger, you can use shallots, you can use bell pepper. All of these things can be considered mirepoix, but onions, celery, and carrot are the 3 main ingredients when most people think about mirepoix. And mirepoix is such an important foundation to so many recipes that it's actually one of the first things you learn to cook in culinary school. But hey, you didn't have to go to culinary school. You just watched this video and you learned something. So if you found this video helpful, please like, please subscribe, and stay tuned for more easy recipes, kitchen tips, and whatever else I can dream up, and whatever questions you have. If there's something you want to learn about in the kitchen that you have a question on, please ask in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.